Hi everyone, I'm Anne Marie. Welcome to the Joy of Poeting. Today we're going to take a look at the Zuihitsu. It's a Japanese form that I guess was made popular, relevant from like ages ago from I believe it's pronounced Sei or Sai Shonagon in a very famous collection called The Pillow Book. She was a lady in waiting of sorts to within like the higher royal court, and she wrote a series of personal essay, prose, poem, list poem type of writings in this larger collection called the Pillow Book. So Zuihitsu, it's translated from the Japanese to mean following the brush or following the pen. And more or less, it's a stream of consciousness writing. It's a kind of a play on a prose poem wherein you're writing about your current thoughts, observations of the things going on around you. And that doesn't mean it can't be edited or revised later on, and you can turn it into whatever it is that you want it to be. Um, but the essence of the poem is to reflect kind of a chaotic flow, as is how our stream of consciousness usually is. It kind of jumps around from one thing to another, and you want to follow your pen. I did prepare a couple of examples. I'm not going to read them, but I'm just going to show you a couple of differences in some examples. So this one is from Jenny Z, I believe, Azui Hitsu. You can see that it's very long and it's not lineated in a traditional poem style. It's more a prose poem in little snippets of observations and thoughts throughout. Then I also have these three from Kimiko Hahn, who wrote, oh, I was looking for this book. It's like something like The Road to the Interior. Um, I'll look it up and I'll put it in the chat later. But it's a collection of all Zuihitsu poems and it's absolutely beautiful. I don't know what I did with it, and I did a Zuihitsu not too long ago for the joy of poeting, but my video wasn't good. So I ended up not putting it up on YouTube, which is why I'm doing it again. So I know that I have the book somewhere, but I couldn't find it for this evening. So these are a little bit shorter poems than the one that I just shared with you. But again, you can see more like a prose poem. Some have described it as fragmented essays or a series of fragmented essays, which, what is your definition of a prose poem? It can be considered a short fiction or a short nonfiction or flash fiction, flash nonfiction. I liked this one because it's like all the different meanings of what clutch might mean, which is just interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna go for it and see what happens, see where my train of thought goes. All right. Zuihitsu. All right, train of thought, train of thought. All right, let's see. Start with some observations. I've often seen these little fragments separated by like little asterisks or like little dots in between. So I'm gonna do the same because I like that style. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that you couldn't see at the bottom. My bad. So I'm doing just, I guess, this one page. I'm gonna check out the chat. Oh, oh, The Narrow Road to the Interior. Thank you, Jess. That's the book from Kimiko Hahn. Thank you. Um, okay. So I guess I'll just read it out loud now. one of the biggest questions with the Zuihitsu is how do you know when it's done? And I guess you just kind of know. For me, it's I got to the bottom of this page and I don't really want to do a second one. Um, but here's what I have. Okay, Zuihitsu. I have two bubble waters next to me on this table. Mine, dragon fruit berry, his lemon. I tell him I stay hydrated by finishing his half-drunk cans that he'd just send down the drain the next day. What gets restored in restorative justice? We gotta move it all someday, whether this year or another. Decisions, decisions, what to keep, what to throw away, what to give away, what. 2 pounds of beef or veggie meat, 2 eggs, breadcrumbs, Italian style. How much? Just kind of cover it all with it. Same for the Parmesan and the salt, pepper, and Italian seasoning. Garlic from a jar, couple teaspoons. Roll them up, fry them up, or air fry. If I ever have disposable income, I want to dispose of it on a cleaning service. To never vacuum again, the ultimate luxury. So I have some observations of my exterior with that. This is a question I've been asking myself recently about restorative justice. We constantly think about moving, so that's always on my mind. I made meatloaf today, but it's the same recipe as meatballs, veggie balls in our house. And all I want is to be able to afford a cleaning service. That's my ultimate dream. Some people want sports cars or like a beautiful house or I don't know, to travel the world or whatever. I just never want to vacuum ever again. That's all. All right, I'm gonna ask for questions. Do I have questions from anybody about the Zuihitsu or this process? I just kind of wrote what I thought about, which is exactly what the Zuihitsu is about. I followed my pen, which is really following your heart. Oh, shoot. I forgot to put a poll together for today. Darn it. Um, Curses. Do you have any requests for poetic forms for next week? No, Sandra. So Sandra asked, the rule is it cannot be edited after it is written. No, it absolutely can be edited after it is written, I believe. I've never heard that you can't edit it. Certainly, like for me, my biggest edit when I go through my poems are first word, worst word, where I write things like tears streamed down my face. And, like you always hear those like tears streaming or something. So it's like, can I come up with something that's not so overused in particular? Or maybe I would go through these little snippets and I would decide, oh, I want them in a different order for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe I would want them to be in some other order for some reason. Maybe I would add more or take a portion out. Yeah. The rules are there are no rules. And even with these like poetic forms, like they're just guidelines. The constraint is there to add creativity, believe it or not. Um, there's this really great TED Talk. The name of the artist escapes me right now, but the name of the TED Talk is called Embrace the Shake. And it's all about how he had nerve damage in his hands as an artist. And so he had to think of different ways of creating art. And so he started creating art with these different kinds of constraints. Like, what can I create if I'm only using Starbucks cups? And that is the only medium that he can use. Like, what is he going to create? So, same with poetic forms. When you have these kinds of constraints, um, they're really there to bolster your creativity. And if you decide afterward, like, oh, I don't like these rules and I don't want to do it, like you're the controller. You're the decider. You get to do whatever you want. And another question with prose poems, Zuihitsu is kind of a style of prose poem, is like, how do you know it's a prose poem and not a flash fiction or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, because the poet said it was a prose poem. And that's the only way. So whatever you say it is, it is. Yeah. Spencer adds, I like that about poetry, the freedom to write what you want. Yes. Okay, so for next week, I can also put a poll in my Instagram stories if you all don't want to shout out any poetic forms for next week. This one was a quick one because it's really just stream of consciousness, and there's no rules about how many lines or um, meter or rhyme scheme or anything like that. I kind of want to do a cento. How do you all feel about cento next week? It just came to me. I was following my pen.
How do you spell that?
Cento. I'll put it in the chat.
Cento. That's
It's
a
a
hundred in
style.
Italian.
Sorry, say it again, Sam.
It means 100 in Italian.
Yes, but I don't think that it has that origin for this meaning. But actually, I don't know the etymology of the poetic style cento, so maybe I have to look it up. But a cento is essentially a poem that is made by borrowing lines from other texts, whether that's other poems, other people's poems, your own poems, song lyrics, um, words or phrases from Twitter or um, the Constitution or a nutrition label or IKEA directions or yeah, you stitch them together and you put them together. Oh, is Sijo another request? I'm gonna write that down. There's actually a Sijo competition happening right now, and the deadline I think is soon, but maybe not. Do you know of a poetic form that uses location in some way? Connie asks. Do I know a poetic form that uses location? I'm not exactly sure. Like location, you mean like in the world? Like like where you are in the world? Or like orienteering? I will look it up. I have a document now that's over 200 poetic forms long. When the first line says, at so and so location, this happened. Hmm. I'm not sure if I know that there's a particular poetic form like that, but that doesn't mean there isn't. I'm not the, you know, I'm not a thesaurus of no dictionary, encyclopedia. I'm not an encyclopedia of poetic forms. I like to think so, um, but there are just so many being invented every day. Can't keep track of them all. Okay, so I have Sijo, I have Cento. I'm going to look for a poetic form that uses location in some way, which is fascinating. If there's not one, I want to make one. Any other requests? Villanelle. Oh, okay. Woof. Challenge. All right, I have four right now. Oh, spoken word. Spoken word definitely has its own style. Oh, and Pantoum. Okay. All right, I'm cutting you off. Thank you, everybody. I am going to do a little bit more research, then I'll put a poll in my Instagram stories. Okay. Thank you all for joining me today. And this was a quick one, but I'll see you next week. So Angela's asking, when is your next session? I have them every single Sunday at 8 p.m. And my Instagram link is at Anne Marie Wells Writer. I put it in the chat. You can find me there. You're welcome, Jess. Thanks for coming. I'll stick around for just a couple minutes in case anybody has any other questions. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thanks for joining. See you next week.